All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Tone Vase YouTube channel. We are in Prospera ZEDE on the island of Roatan, Honduras, in an awesome podcasting studio that was just built here at the Better Building. Those of you that have watched my previous interviews on the subject are familiar with Prospera a little bit. We're, of course, going to give you guys a bit of an overview. We're going to speak to the Justin and the people that put the studio together. Were the first people to use the studio. Literally everything just got put together this week. So it's awesome. I am with Lonis. This time, not one of the founders of Prospera, but one of its very important members.
I'll take that.
Managing pretty much the community manager for everything that's going on.
Well, I'm vice president of growth and development, so most commercial stuff.
Awesome. And he's going to really pitch what makes Prospera different and why I keep coming back and why a lot of you need to come and visit Prospera as well. You can check out the gorgeous view behind us. Let me guys give you a little view of the podcasting studio. There's actually 2 rooms. Oh, my camera just got disconnected because I'm messing with it. Let's try that again. And let me more carefully move it around. Oh, I'm not using that camera anymore. Now I'm using my laptop camera. 1 second. Tone and technical difficulties. What a surprise, right? Yeah, unplug my camera. Usually I use the AI feature of the camera, but tiny virtual camera. Unable to access camera. Make sure you're properly connected and not. Sorry, guys. I'm going to plug my camera back in. I didn't feel like getting up and have the AI camera like just follow me around. So, but let's see if this camera reactivates. And it did. And now I'm going to be a little more careful on how I turn it. This is our podcasting studio. There we are. And Justin, do you guys want to come in? Say hi real quick. Boom, there we go.
Hey.
Come on in. And here, we'll give you guys the mics. So real quick, what made you decide to come to Prospera and set up a studio?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Justin Armand, and this is Isley Boxley, our community manager. We are a streaming platform. You can check us out at civil.com, that's CIVL.com, and a podcasting network. Our mission is to platform ideas that upgrade civilization, people that are at the frontier of human progress. And what we see here with biotech and crypto and the builders of the future doing something in such an incredible startup city. When Isley and I visited Prospera, we have always been drawn to the community, and we see there's so much optimism here. There's so much excitement to build. And we were like, you know what, instead of just, propping up a podcast studio like in the States, it would be something that we absolutely want to do. But like, we also want to be a part of this incredible community. So we're like, what could we build here? And Isley saw this beautiful building in the Beta District right here. And she was like, what if we did a podcast?
This is literally where we are. We are on this upper right side facing this way.
Yes, and I feel bad for my placement because we're blocking the ocean views, which were a big part of the reason that we selected this area. I think any way that you can find to, put a tax write-off on ocean views is an advantage. And the Beta District is certainly beautiful, even among all of the areas of Prospera.
Yeah, so we've been talking about putting a studio together, and we were like, what city should it be? Should it be Austin? Should it be LA? And we were like, you know what, Prospera. Just because we're so aligned with the spirit of what's happening here. And so you got to check out the space, studios.civil.com, that's CIVL.com. And congratulations, guys, for, being the first broadcast out of the place.
So, awesome. Perfect. Yeah. You have no idea how much my audience is going to appreciate good audio. I am still using my own crazy webcams, but hope the audio is better, guys, if I'm able to integrate this audio properly. So hey, once I finally move to Prospera, this could be the future of tone vase, high production.
There you go.
Finally, no more crazy audio, but this is great. I'll throw the link in the video description, but this is it. We're sitting right here, right at this desk in the pictures. Check it out. So if you are a content creator that happens to be watching this channel and you come here, there is a studio for you. All right. Without any further ado, I'm gonna let's introduce Lonis. Say a little something about yourself. What brought you to Prospera? Well, people just come to Prospera and then they don't want to leave.
Right.
Is that your story as well? Because that seems to be almost everyone I meet, including me.
Right. A little bit. Right. I guess I've been. I have. Many years of being dismayed by how the governance and government worked in other places. Right. I'm from Sweden originally. I saw a lot of issues there. Obviously, I didn't see the way governance was going in the US or elsewhere to be that much better. And so I felt to really improve on the base level, like the layer zeros, would need to have a way to innovate on how laws are written, how the justice system works, how taxes work, all of that. And so at some point I just Googled for like new city or new jurisdiction, and Prospera came up. And so I thought, okay, I was actually about at that time to move from Sweden to the US to scale my AI startup. We had I've been working in AI for several years before that, and had a few good outcomes. And I was about to move to San Francisco to start a new one. I just got my US O1 visa. But just a few weeks before I was moving, I read about Prospera for the first time, and it kind of clicked. So I thought, okay, if I move from Stockholm to San Francisco, I can stay here on the island because it's kind of in the middle. And as you say, when I came here, saw it and also read more about the Constitution and how it worked, it really aligned with me. So I ended up resigning my US visa and leaving my startup and coming here a bit over a year ago now.
Awesome. And you've been presenting for people. This is now the second BitChill that I'm a part of.
Yes.
Prior to BitChill is an event that costs almost nothing for people to attend, and they get an introduction to everything that's going on in Prospera. They get to visit the island. I'm one of the hosts, picking up people from the airport, driving them around, just showing people a good time.
Yep.
And what makes Prospera and the island of Roatan absolutely special. And Lonis is one of the presenters to explain the governance structure of Prospera. And he does have a few presentations that we're going to go through because I think They're awesome. I enjoyed them sitting in a conference room listening to them. And I figured my audience would really enjoy them as well. Feel free to throw in your questions in the live chat and then comment below the video any questions, and we will answer them. I mean, Lonis could always answer them if he sees them, or I can always shoot them off to Lonis later on. Real quick, in the video description, we just added, if you guys check the video description, there is a special tone vase link for any questions about Prospera. So if you are going to reach out, you can use the general link. You can also use the tone vase link. I don't really have an affiliate link with Prospera, but it's good for them to know that them taking their time to do podcasts on my channel, does interest my audience. So when you guys reach out, it's noticed that, hey, this lead came from Tone Vase. Hopefully you get a little extra attention because they do like me here a lot. And I do plan on building some amazing stuff here. Oh, wow, my messages are going to be coming through on that side. Oh, boy. Well, nothing we'll be able to do about that. It's just going to be text messages. Okay, maybe I'll turn it off while Lonis is doing a presentation.
Cool.
That was just Lonis and I discussion. Anyway. It's okay. Let's, without any further ado, let's jump right into the presentation. And then when there's any questions, we'll talk about it as well. Lonis's Twitter is I still call it Twitter, is in the video description along with his LinkedIn as well. And I will, those are my DMs. And there he is. And and here we go. This is, which presentation do you want to do first? You sent me two. We're going to go through both of them.
Okay. Well, maybe the other one can go first.
The other one should go first. Okay. So we'll do that. We'll hit present, slideshow, and you have so you have two options. You
Cool.
have arrows here to go forward, and then you have the control key if you want to highlight something,
yeah.
and then you just press control and there will be a circle.
Perfect.
So I will let you speak. I may be interrupting. People know I love to interrupt with additional questions. And let me read the chat.
Yes.
Don't get distracted by it.
Perfect.
So go for it.
Yeah. No. Yes. I guess I have two presentations. One is actually about Prospera, how it works. How to get involved, what's coming up, but then I have this background presentation that we're going to start with, where I talk a little bit about what is the reason for innovating in governance, like what is the purpose for trying to do what we're doing anyways. And there are several reasons, but one of them is the failures of not all government, but of especially legacy government, and why they fail. Right. And so already a bit about me since before. We're here based on the island of Roatan. We're a few hundred people in the zone, very small still, but growing rapidly. And we are a bunch of people here that have moved from the Honduran mainland, from the US, from Europe and elsewhere. And the question people always say is like, why bother? Like, why did you bother coming here in the first place? Right? Now it's kind of getting a lot of infrastructure and a lot of attention, so that's great. But in the early days, it was really like, why bother? And the brief answer to that is that this small zone on this island is the only place in modern history where we actually can innovate on the core level, on layer 0 of society. We can innovate on the governance, right? Which means the rules themselves, the laws and regulations, how the justice system works, how the court system works, the security, and the tax system. And so we can have this full stack legal autonomy, which actually allows us to innovate and do progress. And that is the core of it. And the reason we care so much about improving these factors is that the quality of governance essentially determines the wealth of nations. Right? And it's true if you look historically as well, right? Where for most of history, people's quality of life was very bad, right? You had half of your kids would die before the age of 5. You would always be working essentially. You would have no freedom, no excess. And it wasn't great. And then something happened, right? And that something was, of course, the Industrial Revolution, which was a product of the Enlightenment and Enlightenment thinkers and the Enlightenment ideals, right? Everything from John Locke and Adam Smith to later the US founding fathers who actually implemented many of these previously philosophical ideas. And that is actually what enabled growth to happen and enabled, the wealth that we are used to today. So that is key. However, as we see it, right, and also, this is true, if you look in across countries today, right? So if you look here, you have on the y-axis, you have the GDP per capita of different countries. On the on the x-axis, you have an approximation of governance quality, which is the ease of doing business. And again, what you see is that regardless of the culture, geographical profile, cultural profile, what actually matters most is the governance quality. And it's true on the average. It's also true.
I took our video out. There you go.
It's also true for the poorest decile, right? So if you plot out the how well the poorest decile is doing, you can see the more economic freedom, the better the country is doing. And some people are sometimes surprised by this graph because they're saying, "Well, do you mean that Canada and Germany have is that good?" But they are not really that good, in my opinion. They're just comparatively good versus many of the developing countries, right? So if you're trying to do business in a country like Honduras, for instance, or India or Brazil, you will have a pain starting a business. You will have an absolute pain raising money. It's almost impossible because there are all these investment laws. Importing and exporting is a pain. There's no rule of law, right? So again, those things are what keeps those countries developing countries. But anyways, we think we can...
Right. And a lot of these countries near the top, I mean, legally, it might be easier to start a business, but their taxes are so high.
Yes.
And their rules on, hiring, firing people and getting sued all the time are so high. Everyone I know is getting out of Europe,
yes,
has no interest in ever doing a startup in Europe, because while the government will let you do a startup, people don't want to do a startup,
right,
because of all the bureaucracy that goes along with it. And good luck, getting rid of a senior manager.
Yeah,
it's actually impossible.
Yeah, No, for sure. I mean, and it's but the thing I agree 100%. The thing though, it's not that much easier in Honduras. It's actually even worse. Like trying to fire in Honduras is almost impossible.
Right, so I heard it's actually a lot of Latin countries. It's similar in Panama, where I've been based. You get like a 2-month initial period where you can hire and fire your employees, and if they make it past 2 months, it does become a little bit of a nightmare.
Right.
And Prospera has a little more capitalistic approaches to hiring and firing. Correct?
Free market, yeah, free market for sure. And you know, but the core thing is, though, is, you know, the quality of you know, the rule of law, the easiness of doing business, and you know, how small the government is. You know, unlimited government is. And you know, if we had good governance, the world could be almost perfect, right? That is we could have basically low poverty. We could have endless supply of medicine, affordable housing for everyone, and that government that actually works for the people, and is minimized. But we aren't there yet, right? And the reason for that is that, you know, the current government is going in the wrong direction, right? 2/3 of people are very actively dissatisfied with the governments, as we all kind of notice all the time. 80% of governments are also losing money unsustainably, mostly because we still live in a fiat-dominated world, right? But that is, of course, changing. But the current paradigm is not really that great. And I'll give you some examples in a few different industries. And so starting with, but before I give you these examples in housing, medicine, etc., I'll talk a little bit about the root causes, like why do we see failures? And there are 3 big pillars of reasons. Like one is, and that is dysfunctional incentives, right? So if you're a business, you only survive if you serve your customer well. So there's a strong feedback loop between being competitive and surviving. Whereas with government agencies and politicians, you don't really have that strong feedback loop. You get paid regardless of whether you do a good job or a terrible job. The main thing is that you're just appearing to be charismatic, right? And so there's no pressure to improve in public agencies generally. There's also related to this lack of competition, right? So in a free market, if you don't like Netflix, you go to HBO. If you don't like one product, you go to another product. But when it comes to government agencies or governments, if you don't like the FDA, well, to get something else, you need to uproot your entire life, your family, leave your family or your previous friends, and go to a new place, right? So the exit costs are so high that you effectively have a monopoly and that means that they don't have incentive to improve. And the last thing is that, you know, even if you have good incentives, even if you have competition, there would still be the knowledge problem, right? Where as a planner, you just don't have the detailed information that business people on the ground in these different industries will have, right? So a zoning board that is planning a city, they can't possibly figure out how many people actually want to live in this neighborhood, and what will the copper price and the steel prices be in a year, and how does that inform how we should build things? They just don't have that tacit and specific knowledge that the market produces. Right, so these are 3 pillars of that lead to failure, right? And then to go into some of the failures, right? One of them is housing, right? We all know that housing can easily eat up 30, 40, 50% of one's paycheck, especially for the working class. And the reason it's so expensive is not that we've run out of space or that we've forgotten how to build. It's actually that we've outlawed the solution to the housing crisis, which is building more housing. And we mainly outlawed it via what we call zoning laws, which is basically a set of restrictions which says that if you have one type of house, A, then you can't build type C, D, and E next to it for whatever reason, right? And you have this very long list of rules and restrictions for what you can build. And in isolation, every one of them, you can argue for them, but in aggregate, they absolutely slaughter the ability to build things. So the New York Times looked into the situation in New York, right? They looked into zoning restrictions, and they found that almost half of the current buildings in New York aren't even compliant with their zoning restrictions, right? So you can't even think about building new housing. Half of the current ones are already legal and couldn't have been built if with today's system. Obviously, they were built in a more free market system, 100 or 50 years ago, but today they couldn't. And I'm from Sweden, so I can speak for how it's been in Sweden. We have decent rule of law, right? So and these decent trading regulations. However, when it comes to housing, it's an absolute catastrophe, right? So we have 30-year rental waiting time, which is the longest in the world. The permits take a massive amount of time, but that's the case in most developed jurisdictions, unfortunately. But then also we have this interesting phenomena of rent caps, right? Which also New York might implement, where we say that if you're a unit owner, there's a cap on how much you can charge for your unit. and so on the first-hand rental. And so, however, there's not a cap on the second-hand market. So what happens is that nobody in the first-hand rental market actually lives in their house. They just sublet it on the second-hand market and can charge twice the cost, as you see here. This is the second-hand market in Swedish, and then it's the first-hand market in Swedish.
Right, so the landlord gets totally screwed,
Yes.
and the Airbnb guy is making all the money.
Correct. So nobody builds. So no landlord is actually building more housing because you can't make any money. And so that's also why we have this 30-year rental waiting time. And this always happens when you have these types of rental caps. And so we have massive dysfunctional incentives. We have massive lack of competition. There's only one zoning board in any given jurisdiction, and they don't have any good information. Now, it doesn't have to be like that. It's like this situation is in almost every developed country except for Tokyo. Like Tokyo have added millions of people in the last decades, but their zoning restrictions have been minimal enough that they actually haven't seen a meaningful increase in costs versus other places like Stockholm, New York, and any other place. And so it is possible to have decent systems. However, since other jurisdictions could look at Tokyo and just copy them, but they aren't doing it because they don't have incentive to improve. That's the core thing. They don't have incentive to improve, and they don't really care. Anyways, in Prospera, not only do we not have any zoning laws on the government perspective, right? Zoning can happen on the private property side. You can decide how you want to build out your district, but there's nothing on the governance layer. And on top of that, what we do on the governance side is that we have this Georgia's land value tax, right? So, if you have, the question is basically, what is the least bad tax? Maybe you can say all taxes are bad, and I wouldn't disagree necessarily, but what is the least bad? And so the least bad would be a land value tax, which doesn't tax you on the property because the property disincentivizes you to improve it. But if you're taxed, so if you build this larger house, you'll be taxed more, which really doesn't make sense. However, if you're taxed on the unimproved land, then if you sit on an acre of land and I have an acre of land and I don't do anything, I just sit on it, and you build housing and skyscrapers or just housing for yourself, we pay the same tax.
Right, so I basically lower my tax burden by creating usefulness out of the property while raising your tax burden for doing nothing with yours.
Yes, correct. And so it actually incentivizes some useful economic activity.
Right, and discourages squatting on land.
Correct. Exactly. Yes, so that's on housing. Now I'll go into climate change. Climate change, people have different opinions on it. I happen to think it's real, and it might get worse. That's my view. But I think the main cause of climate change, unfortunately, is caused by the government, right? So if you look at the energy sources, we've had access to clean energy for many decades, right? And we've had access to very safe energy as well, right? So nuclear is thousands of times more safe than any other reasonable alternative that's been on the market in the last many decades. And actually, this number would be zero if you count reactors that has been built in the last 40 years, right? So there's been one incident in Ukraine, essentially, which
was in the 80s. We had Fukushima, and then there was the 3 Mile Island.
All of those were very old reactors. So this is not something that's happened with any of the newer reactors. And the Ukraine incident was the only one where civilians died. And that was mostly...
I was actually there in 2019, right in the city.
Yeah.
They can do tours now.
Okay, and the vibes are good.
Very interesting. Well, you do have to get a radiation check on the way out, but...
No, the communists really blew that up, certainly. Yeah. But anyway,
the documentary on HBO was excellent, by the way. If anyone wants to, understand what happened in Chernobyl, watch the 6-part HBO miniseries called Chernobyl. It was excellent.
Yeah. It's it shows kind of this dysfunction in the communist system, right? Where there was no communication, everything broke down. Anyway, so people might say that, okay, well, maybe you're right that nuclear is safe, but actually it's not competitive. It's too expensive. And I would say that you're right, but you're right for the wrong reasons. So if you look at the price trajectory of nuclear, right, as you can see here on the graph here, on the y-axis you have the cost to produce 1 kilowatt of energy using nuclear. And this is a log scale, right, as you see. Mm-hmm. And so on the x-axis you have the total amount of nuclear being produced. And so what you see here is an exponential decrease, again, because it's a log scale, it's an exponential decrease in the cost to produce nuclear the more you produced, right? So this is the typical learning curve you see. The more iPhones you make, the cheaper it is to make an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
However, something happened here where it shut up. I'm not sure if anyone in the comments can guess what, why did it shut up? Did we forget about physics, or did the science change, or what happened?
Well, the podcast had a little bit of a delay,
Oh,
so
exactly.
you may want to. Yeah, it's like a 30-second delay.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be waiting for a bit for people to guess.
Well,
but,
okay.
But go for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the formation of the DOE in the US, right? It's part of energy. In Europe, most of Europe, they just outright banned it. And so we basically couldn't do any scale anymore.
Well,
and
energy is getting too cheap. They need to regulate, right? This is why Tesla's whole experiments were defunded by JP Morgan, who was financing General Electric, and basically he was financing Tesla's competitors.
Yes.
And when he learned that Tesla was trying to give everyone free energy, he cut Tesla's funding.
Right.
And he could never complete his coils.
Correct. Yes, a massive amount of special interest in all of this. And so yeah, I mean, so that's why it's today, unfortunately, very expensive. Though we could have free energy abundance today if we had done otherwise.
So he's talking about the rise in cost.
Right.
And electricity here on the island is actually very expensive.
It is very expensive.
So hopefully Prospera has some unique solutions. Maybe potentially build a mini nuclear reactor to provide very cheap energy, or perhaps some entrepreneur is going to come to the zone and build something even better.
Yeah, we have for solar panel companies. They're coming in and will do solar, so we hope to be able to halve the costs. By that, nuclear on the island would make sense because the land is too expensive here, but maybe on the mainland, right, in the future.
Right, and then you just have to get that energy to here.
Right,
but they're close. You can do a cable line.
It's
very close. So real quick, guys, before my audience knows my viewpoints on climate change. So here's how I try to explain climate change. I separate climate change from pollution.
Right.
And in my view, humans cause pollution. Humans do not cause climate change. The climate is too big, the planet, the sun, everything. We are incapable of creating climate change, but we can pollute the environment in our immediate and near vicinity, making life less healthy because of the pollution that we're creating. But the government is using the narrative that pollution causes global climate change for the purposes of control of the population.
Right.
Yes, pollution is bad, but it is solvable. But I'm not sure the government is the entity to solve it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can have different perspectives for sure. But and I agree, pollution is a massive issue, and certainly government is causing the problems. I guess in this case, right? So we have this new SMRs here, small medium reactors that are being built finally, despite all the resistance. The thing though is that it costs just the application cost to get approval to launch this small medium reactor in the US cost $500 million, right? And so not the science fees, just to file the application and submit the application.
The application fee is $500 million.
Right. And the way it was calculated, or the way they ended up with this fee was that they charge you $300 per hour of reading your application. And so they will basically force you to submit as many pages as possible, so they get as much revenue as possible. And so in this case, there was 2 million pages submitted, and this is all all online. And so, anyways, this is dysfunctional incentives. The government doesn't actually have an incentive to provide affordable, non-polluting energy. There's a massive competition. This is mostly regulated on the federal level.
Oops, sorry, hold on, let me get rid of the little camera here. And they can't see your point B because you're in the right corner.
Oh, okay.
So when I put the camera of us, it blocks that little.
Oh, okay.
corner.
There you go. There you go. And so there's lack of competition, and then
you gotta click on that. Yeah.
There's no signal as well. Okay, so again, there are some countries that have been doing this specific thing. Well, so France actually has majority of their energy is nuclear, and South Korea used to also have a very meaningful nuclear share, and they're doing much better than the other countries that aren't. But again, nobody's looking at, France is screwing up in many other ways, of course, but they are doing right in this way. However, there's no other countries here looking at them and figuring out what can we learn and then copy that, because there's no incentive to improve.
Right. And then you have the green movement, like in Germany, that
Yes.
is shutting down all the
Correct.
nuclear reactors. It hasn't
Correct.
spread to France yet, but it's trying. My quick view on nuclear, while I completely agree, it is pretty safe energy. My concern with nuclear is that as I watch the world trend towards the documentary Idiocracy,
Mhm.
I am very concerned as to who they put in charge of the nuclear projects.
Right.
And so at the moment, because I don't trust humans,
Yeah.
I would rather find alternatives to nuclear.
Yeah.
Not because nuclear is bad, is because humans that manage nuclear are bad. I mean, with the Russia-Ukraine situations,
Yeah.
they're literally firing
Yes.
on the nuclear reactors because it would fit their narrative if one exploded.
Yeah.
I
think we both agree that the government shouldn't run these things, right? They can't even figure out the zoning for a city. Well, how could they figure out how to do nuclear, right? So this should be, but there are companies that are doing this at scale in France and South Korea safely and that are more competent. But yeah, I mean, we can have different perspective on it. Anyway, so that's one example. I'll go to another example, right? So medicine is more a miracle. Of course, we used to have, again, half of our kids die before the age of 5. We used to have massive amount of deaths from all sorts of diseases that we don't have currently. And the reason for that, of course, was that we had scientists who were able to produce cures and go to market with them. However, that's not the world we live in today, unfortunately. Right? It's more expensive than ever to launch a new drug, whether it's the US or the EU. And there are a few causes for this, right? If you look at
go back. You had
Oh yeah, I'll go into that.
right.
But yeah, I guess if you look at the history of the FDA, mostly, you used to be able to get almost 100 drugs on the market for $4 billion investment, and now we're in less than one, right? After many rounds of regulatory overhang, and there are many people who have been hurt by this inadvertently, right? So one example is the HIV community at the end of the 80s, early 90s, where there were folks like Keith and tens of thousands of like him that had that were dying of HIV, even though there were safe and effective treatments on the market, but they hadn't gone through the 10 to 12 year FDA cycle. Right? Even as they were dying, they weren't able to take the treatments just because the FDA hadn't approved them, even though they were already dying and they were safe, right? And so in this case, this was a very public thing, but in most cases, the majority of cases, I call it the invisible graveyard. Basically, people who could have lived if they would have access to better treatment, but it's stuck in the FDA review cycle.
And it feels like that one drug that FDA does eventually approve after all the money is one of the worst drugs that probably will cause you more harm than good.
Right. I mean, there's a massive amount of special interest, right? I mean, the regulatory stuff actually isn't bad from the big pharma perspective, right? Because for the big pharma, having an expensive process actually creates a massive moat versus startups.
Right.
And so
it's a massive barrier to entry.
It's a massive barrier to entry, yes. And so there's a massive amount of special interest in a revolving door, right? So once you come out of the FDA, you usually end up working at Pfizer as a board member, right? And so there's a
total revolving door between the FDA and the big pharma corporation.
Yeah, so that is one big component for why this is the case, right? But so some breakdown of this, right? So almost all of the time and cost to get the drug to market is not at all in the safety component. Proving safety in, they call it a phase 1 trial, is relatively cheap and goes quite quickly. Right? Typically take 10 to 50 million, and it's not that time intensive. However, the government is then putting in the regulatory, they're putting in the government overhead into also proving efficacy. And obviously we all want efficacious drugs, but when you put in the government into that system, that's what blows up the cost and makes it impossible for any startup to go to market. And so you have that as a problem. You have also the better than the Beatles problem, which is that even if you as a startup, you want to, compete with one of the big pharma companies, not only do you obviously have to come up with a good drug, you then have to prove it safe, you have to prove it efficacious, and then you still can't go to market because you have to prove that it's better than anything currently on the market. Right? So it would, in the tech world, it's like if you want to compete with Facebook or Airbnb, your first version has to be better than Facebook or Airbnb for you to ever have your first dollar of revenue. And so this makes it impossible to compete with. Again, the incumbents doesn't mind this at all, but it makes it impossible for new entrants to compete. And then, as we said, the revolving doors problem, which you see certainly in the bio world, but you also see this in military industrial complex. You see this in a few of these regulated industries. And again, so there's massive incentives, lack of competition. You only have one FDA to go to, and you have in the EU, you have basically one. They've also centralized it now, and there's no way for the regulators to figure out what people actually want to do. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna let's go very quickly through the criminal justice because I do want to get to
Prospera.
What Prospera is actually doing to solve these problems. So.
Yes.
The TLDR, we all know how terrible the criminal justice system is, but let's go through this section
super quick. Yes. Quick. So yeah, I mean, we've had almost 7x increase in federal prison population, and we saw a small dip because they decriminalized marijuana and cannabis.
Marijuana, they criminalized weed, pretty much.
Very much, yeah. So
which should have never been criminalized in the first place.
Never, and hundreds of thousands of people were in jail and are still in jail because this is not happening everywhere, because of doing things where there's no victim. There's victimless crime, right?
And I learned the other day from actually one of the lawyers and arbitrators here in Prospera,
yes.
That this was all done because of one guy, the head of the DEA,
right.
in the 1920s. Already forgot his name. And back when that department was just a small office with like 8 people. And he just went on a mission, and not only did America was the first country to criminalize any kind of drugs like cocaine, heroin, marijuana, America forced the world to do so, or they would not do business with it. And at the time, everyone wanted to do business with America. So not only did America criminalize this, they're the ones that forced the entire world to do the same.
Correct. Yes, and this, the big push was they had this the war on drugs, right? It was a bipartisan thing, and it's been going on, but it really exploded in the late 70s. Anyways, and there's a massive amount of dysfunctional incentives. Basically, the politicians just come up with a cool tagline, which was the war on drugs, and then they just put everyone in prison, whether it hurt anyone or not, right? And there's obviously lack of competition. You have one DEA, you have one. And no price signal. And so, again, this doesn't have to be the case. If you look in Portugal, they actually decriminalized drugs in the 2000s. And since then, their number of drug overdoses have gone down meaningfully. And they remain one of the most peaceful places in the world. Versus places like the US and elsewhere where it's going in the wrong direction. Okay, so just to recap, right? So the problem with legacy governments, dysfunctional incentives, like competition or price signal. And so Prospera is not perfect by any means. But we are trying to look at what were the main causes of failure in the previous system and how can we try to improve on it, right? So in Prospera, we have more aligned incentives because we only really make money if we serve our customer, right? So we have a few small taxes, and the only reason someone would come out to this island is if we create a good enough business and living environment for people to want to come here, right? So it's a very strong feedback loop. I'm not looking to get elected, right? But I better have enough customers. Well, and in terms of competition, well, it's very easy to move out 100 meters out of Prospera if we mistreat you, right? So the cost of exit it's very easy to exit. And also we built into the Prospera model that, let's say we would get corrupt in the future, whatever, you can actually, as landowner in Prospera, you can actually fork it and create your own sub-jurisdiction within the zone, where you would have an independent legal and tax setup, if you wish. And so this is something that is possible, and it's something we created in order to create this check, because we saw this was one of the main failures. As genius as the framers were, they didn't sufficiently incorporate the importance of exit. And then I would, in price signal, I would hope, I wish I could say that we're actually just better planners. We can just, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think we are that great planners. So what we try to do instead is we try to have as small of a governance unit as possible and then decentralize down the decisions to the actual market because they know much better, right? So that's how we're trying to handle it in a high level. And happy now to go into more specifics on Prospera as well.
Is that the last slide here?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we're going to actually jump on to the Prospera presentation, which specifically talks about Prospera.
Yes. So what we do with Prospera, right, is that we're inventing this industry we call governance as a service, right? So we effectively partner with host countries. The first one, Honduras, but we talk with other governments to provide the service that the governments typically provide, which is called governance, but we provide it as the private party, right? So that means the rules themselves, the laws and regulations, the justice system, the security, and our business model is taxes. And the way we're doing it, right, we're an apolitical project. It's that we're not in Honduras or elsewhere, we're not lobbying for any national change. We don't think that, you guys, everyone should agree with our system. We don't think that's moral or feasible. And what we do instead, and what has worked historically, is you start with small sums, or you build from scratch, ideally with no taxpayer funding, and you prove out the model, right? And then as you prove out the model, people can opt in that are aligned and agree. And if you don't, or if you aren't aligned, you can opt out. And historically, this has also worked. You saw in China, you saw their special economic system grow via Shenzhen and Shanghai. They used to be fully communist, and then they got these special economic zones, which actually exploded in growth. Right, Hong Kong being one example. And similarly in the UAE, they were fully dependent on oil. And so we created Dubai as a special region within the country with an independent legal and regulatory setup. And now Dubai is, one of the wealthiest places in that country, even though they have no oil. Right? They don't have any oil in that. It's all commerce. And Singapore is, of course, being a new jurisdiction. And on very high level, how our governance system looks like, right? On the base level, we operate on common law, which is, of course, the law is based on actual cases and actual disputes, which is then codified into law. It's the most decentralized bottoms-up version there is. We have a regulatory system where if you're in a regulated field like finance, healthcare, construction, we have regulatory choice and regulatory flexibility. And I'll double click on what this is. We have a simple tax system, right? So we don't tax obviously capital gains. So we don't tax your Bitcoin appreciation. It wouldn't make sense because we don't actually contribute to it.
Water.
I think I'm surviving.
Okay. Make sure that's the water because you're talking. I don't have any questions yet. We'll have questions at the end.
Thank you.
That's the water.
And we have a 1% reverse land value tax. And
talk about the taxes a little bit in detail.
Okay.
These are the 4 taxes you guys see on the screen are the only 4 taxes that someone that is in this zone will be paying. And it's impossible for you to pay all of them because the 5% is a personal income tax, and the 1% is a corporate business tax.
Right.
So if you are a business owner paying 1%, you're not an employee paying 5%. And if you are an employee paying 5%, you're not going to be a business owner. So right there, there's no way you're going to be paying them both.
Right.
And you don't have to own land. So that's another tax that is optional if you choose to own land for your business. Your business doesn't have to own land. Your business could be renting the space. So paying all of these taxes is not possible for any one person. So your average tax burden will be somewhere between 2 to 3% to maybe about 6 or 7.
Yes, exactly. And these are territorial taxes, so they only apply if you reside in Prospera at least 90 days per year. And then you would also get the tax certificate and a tax receipt that can you can prove that you're a tax resident. Obviously, if you're an American, you would only pay taxes on the first 130K or something like that, where you actually can be tax exempt as an American. But then on top of that, the Americans will tax you regardless as a citizen. And we have a justice system based on private arbitration, so private courts essentially, which are much more affordable and efficient. If you have governments around the court, you will have to wait years to get a resolution. And there will be this dynamic where, as a company, you can just bully, people who doesn't have the money to sustain year-long disputes. Whereas if you have a private arbitration center that is efficient and small, then in Prospera they resolve disputes. That you get a hearing within a month, you get a decision within 2 months, and the loser pays. Right? So you don't have this bullying effect in the justice system, which is really important. And then we have this legal stability guarantee. This is basically a resident contract or a social contract, if you will, that you sign when you come here. And that gives you a legal right to always be grandfathered into the best possible tax and regulatory regime. Right? So if we at some point in the future would change the taxes, it wouldn't apply to you because you would be grandfathered into the best possible tax regime and same on the regulatory side. And the reason for this is that, if you come to Prospera with your business or a family and you set up, you deserve predictability. It shouldn't be that there can be an election or a change of person working in Prospera and then you have your conditions changed. That shouldn't be the case.
So if these taxes are ever to change, you will be grandfathered in.
Right.
If you are already a Prospera resident, full-time. I am a Prospera full-time resident. These are the taxes I will have forever. So even if the taxes one day do need to rise, they would not affect me.
Correct. And you don't need to be even full-time, but if you're a sufficient amount of resident.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And just on a very high level, you can set up a business in Prospera quicker than anywhere else. The fees are very low, especially the recurring annual fees. The taxes are very low. We're not a zero tax jurisdiction because it's a business model. We have to earn income somehow, but we try to keep them low. And then the results are quite good so far. Actually, I have to update these charts with last year, which was our best year so far. But we've now crossed more than 400 companies incorporated. Tax revenue is going up more than 2,000.
And companies can take advantage of this tax structure and the legal structure virtually. You don't have to set up a company here on the ground. Camera's not on.
Thank you.
We got our waters. And you know what? Let's throw the cameras in the bottom corner there. I mean, we could do something like this, but then the presentation would be kind of small, so that's why we're just gonna go this way. And you can set up your company virtually and take advantage of everything Prospera has to offer. It's just that people don't know what Prospera has to offer until you really start looking. And this is a beautiful island. It's I am looking to set up some physical businesses here in Prospera, and virtually it makes sense as well. I mean, it makes a little more sense for non-Americans, but it also makes sense for Americans for certain jurisdictions. One of the best things that I love about the jurisdiction here, especially for companies that are in person, for biomedical technology or financial technology or just finance in general, in a lot of these fields, the examples that I love to use is like stem cell injections, for as an example. I am from Panama. I've been in Panama the last few years. Panama has very good stem cell regulation. That's why some of the best stem cell clinics happen to be in Panama. But there are also good stem cell clinics and regulations in other parts of the world. Coming here to Prospera and setting up a stem cell clinic, the Prospera governance, they're not going to have experts trying to figure out what is the best jurisdiction and the best laws for stem cells. They will let the market decide. So if you're setting up a stem cell clinic here in Prospera, you can inform Prospera that you will be following the Panamanian stem cell regulation that is already globally accepted and operating. And as long as you follow those regulations, you are not breaching your contract of your business with Prospera.
Right.
And someone setting up another stem cell clinic to compete with you right next door to you can use the Mexican stem cell regulation because maybe they know those better or they think there's an advantage with those regulations versus the Panamanian ones. As another example, let's say for your business, the best regulation is Uganda or another country in Africa. And you would love to set up shop in that country for your business, but you just don't want to move to the middle of Africa. As long as those regulations have a viable place in the global marketplace and are accepted, you can use those regulations to set up your company under those regulations in one of the most beautiful islands in the Caribbean.
Yeah, no, you said it better than I would. That's definitely the case, and that is what we see, right? So we have the GARM clinic here, where you can do, as you say, stem
I think
cells.
you have it if we go next.
Yeah,
slide.
we have it somewhere here. Yeah, here are some examples of folks on the ground. We have Virginia. She, local here to the island. She left and but came back when she heard about Prospera, and she now runs the local school here for the local community.
She's great.
She's great.
Yeah, I just met her the other day. I think you guys might be rezoning the area where her school is for local kids, but we're going to build her a better, bigger one, even closer to the village where she's from. So she will benefit from having that school moved in all kinds of ways. And now that there's more people that want to utilize that land for other things, she becomes a huge beneficiary, getting that school that Prospera initially built in bootstrapping and helping the neighboring community. Now there are more entrepreneurs, myself included, who will happily donate in order to provide free English education for the local kids here.
Perfect. Yeah, no, exactly. And she's done an amazing job on that. And then we have Ricardo. He's Honduran. He studied law and was, lived in the States for a little bit. But then as soon as Prospera started, he came back and started one of the leading law firms here locally, right? Where, otherwise he would be in the States.
It has this El Salvador vibe, after Bukele took over. So many El Salvadorians came back to El Salvador because now they had a regulatory environment and the safety to build what they always wanted to build, but were scared to do so. And Prospera is doing the same for people that are here on the island.
Correct, 100%. That's one of the main things, right? That Honduras is one of the countries that has produced the most number of illegal immigrants to the U.S. Hundreds of thousands of illegal, quote unquote, illegal immigrants, and but that is because there's opportunity here locally. With this one like Prospera, they don't have to leave their homes and risk their life, and and have all of that, handle all of that. They can stay in their country of birth and have a lot of opportunity here.
I want to answer a question, but it's like white on white, so it's hard to see. So someone says there's no chance of taxes getting lower, but there is a chance of taxes can get higher. There is a chance taxes can get lower, but you have to realize that these taxes are already so low. There would have to be massive economic activity here in order to lower them, because it may not be possible to lower them. This was also the lowest amount of taxes that the jurisdiction was able to not only negotiate with the parent country of Honduras that allowed them to operate here, and also from a global perspective, your zero tax jurisdiction, if you can find one, which Dubai is not anymore, your zero tax jurisdiction may sound great on paper, but global governments, especially, governments that like to control the world, like the US and some others, they really do not like zero taxation zones. And they blacklist zero taxation zones.
Yeah.
Again, I have been living in Panama for years. Panama has been blacklisted over the Panama Papers. People get, looked upon weird looks when they say they've changed their jurisdiction to Caribbean passports. When you leave a jurisdiction and enter a zero tax zone, it's great for you, but you have to realize that zero tax zone is way more likely to be sanctioned, and it would be hard for you to do business and banking and all this stuff. So for exchange of a 5% tax, which should not make or break the bank, could give you so much global access and the removal of fear that you will be sanctioned, or you will be put under a microscope, or you will be, audited by your parent country, goes up the closer you get to zero. So having this balance of minimum taxes that you can live with paying, and that your parent country or other countries doing business with you will not sanction you or fear that them doing business with you could get them sanctioned because now they're doing business with a shady zero tax entity. That's as best as I can explain it.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I agree. That is the case. That is the case. And yeah, just yes, and just to give just quickly on the last people. So Niklas, he's a German entrepreneur, and very interested in longevity and helping people increase their health span, and also lifespan in this case. And so he raised 7 million. He has a bunch of employees here, and he's raised more than 20 million for the local startup community. For his startup community. And then we have Ivan, who's a real estate developer. He was previously from Ukraine, and now he's raised $5 million to build 5 new towers in Prospera from a Bitcoiner mostly, one of the big Bitcoiners here on the island, and that will be great. And some of the companies here, right? We have Garm. They have a bunch of stem cells and other sort of treatments.
Yeah, Brian Johnson. Is that Brian Johnson?
That's Brian Johnson.
That is Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
So Brian Johnson came to the Garm clinic to get a gene therapy altering injection from MiniCircle, which operates through the Garm clinic. And there is a YouTube playlist in the video description that has that Brian Johnson's episode of ignore the clickbaity title. This isn't some secret island. But and there are other very good videos about what is being built here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a reversible temporary gene therapy that produces, I think in that case, it's like muscle mass and stuff like that for longevity. But we also have companies like Blink. They are, the headquarter is registered here, and they are, one of the, faster growing B2B business companies as Bitcoin companies. So I used them this morning actually when I bought some protein drink in the coffee shop. I use Blink and on the Lightning Network. We have Circular Factory, which is building modular housing. We're using robotics. We have Amity Age, which is a Bitcoin center here, which have educated, I think, up to 100 businesses on the island. So there are all around the island, there are businesses taking Bitcoin as payment. And that's mostly because of the educational work that they are doing.
The Amity Age Bitcoin Center is the nicest Bitcoin center in the world, like from an aesthetic perspective. I have been to God knows how many Bitcoin centers around the world. And this is by far the coolest if there was ever a global ranking, and it's not even close.
It's very nice. It's on the hill.
It's at the highest point on the island.
Yeah.
It is absolutely incredible. Dushan is doing an amazing job. We have a big barbecue there in 2 days. I might interview Dushan and maybe somebody else from Prospera to talk about the real estate opportunities here, which are really cool.
Perfect. Yes, you can definitely.
This is literally what I am looking to do. And probably in a few months, when I have some architectural plans, I will show you what I plan to build in Prospera.
Perfect. Yeah, and we're looking actively for real estate developers, real estate investors who want to make use of the land, right? Our current footprint is the size of Monaco. And so there's a lot of land to build on.
Also, the Bitcoin Center here goes around the island and tries to get as many businesses on the island to accept Bitcoin. There's lots of businesses, lots of restaurants, car rental company. There's lots of businesses on the island that are accepting Bitcoin. And hopefully in a few years, the whole island will.
Yep. Again, because it's an island, it's easier to get this critical mass.
Yeah, so keep in mind, guys, like this is the island of Roatan, which has about 100,000 people permanently living on the island. Every day, almost every day, at least one cruise ship stops here. So on busy days, when 3 cruise ships stop on the island, the population of the island rises by 20 to 30%. Because when you have 3 massive cruise ships, each one can hold, 10,000 people. And Prospera ZEDE takes up about up maybe 5% of the island at most, probably less.
Probably less.
Maybe 3% of the island is Prospera ZEDE. So that's the footprint of Prospera ZEDE compared to the island. And you guys have probably just under 1,000 people permanently living in the ZEDE, I would say. That would be my guess.
Yes.
So it's about 1,000 people living in Prospera ZEDE.
I would say a few hundred currently.
Well, plus the staff, right? So on any
Yes, sure, staff,
on any given day, you will run into up to 1,000 people.
That's true.
If you are in the area, if you are in Prospera ZEDE, and I'm including Pristine as well, which is technically not yet rolled into the ZEDE for tax and regulatory structure, but it's in the works.
Yes.
So I don't know if you have a picture of
yeah, we do in a bit.
In this presentation. Oh, is it getting there? Oh yeah, you'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. Okay,
yes.
So we'll keep going.
Yeah, no, but exactly. Okay, so quickly on the regulatory side, right? So we have this company here, Unlimited Bio. It's a group of scientists from Eastern Europe. They found that this molecule that had been used to treat limb disease for many decades actually was very interesting for longevity reasons because it seemed to increase the several biomarkers related to longevity. However, and since it had been used for many decades safely, they thought, okay, there's certainly enough safety data here for many decades of heavy use. And so they wanted to go to market with this in the US. But the FDA says, no, we don't care about any other data outside of our jurisdiction. We'll do everything from scratch. It will cost them $500 million and take them more than a decade. Right? That doesn't work for a startup. That only works for the big companies. And so instead, we're able to go to Prospera, where they could go to market in a few months through our regulatory system, of course. And we're able to launch. They now are live here. They have the first customers. And a few months ago, the Kardashians actually tweeted about starting to use it, which was quite surprising. And the regulatory system we have, right, is that if you're in the common industry, education, software, whatever it is, you start a company and you get going. But if you're in a regulated industry, right, like healthcare, finance, manufacturing, etc., then the regulatory system you're used to is that you have to deal with one of these agencies, right? Whether that's the FDA, the SEC, the FTC, the NRC, and they almost never do a good job, mainly because the incentives are wrong, right? We spoke about this at length, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of costs, right? And so we have a different paradigm in Prospera where you have your business and your regulation of choice, right? So you can actually choose the regulatory framework that you want to operate under, which Tone mentioned before, right? You can elect to work under Singapore law or Panama law or create your own optimal regulation from scratch. But then you need to get an approval from an insurance company that will give you a policy, right? So they will look at your company and regulation of choice and say, is this safe enough to underwrite, right? And if you're trying to get a home insurance in Florida, you would know that the insurance companies, they care a lot about the tail risk, right? The risk of something going wrong. So they will not approve a drug that is not safe, right? Because there's way too high of a risk that someone get hurt, you get sued in an arbitration center, and they will have to pay up a bunch of money. Insurance companies, they don't like to pay out money, as we all know. So they make sure to keep the system in check, but they do it in a more rational way than governments are doing, right? They actually internalize the downside and the upside of regulation. And so they will, if you have a good drug that's, you can prove after 2 years it's safe, they don't force you to wait another 12 years just for the sake of it. So that's on the regulatory side. I can just go through this. Yeah, we spoke a little bit about, where we are currently, right? We are, to get the jurisdiction like Prospera's, you need to scout different jurisdictions, get LOIs, MOUs. By far hardest part is the legislation, which in the case of Honduras, it was the ZEDE legislation, which was driven by 2 Honduran economists and lawyers and free market thinkers, Octavio Sanchez, Carlos Pineda. It was passed in 2013 as a way to basically take the success they saw in Hong Kong and Dubai and have that here in Honduras. Of course, in Honduras, they don't have the money to publicly invest to create this. So instead, they created a system where you can have a public-private partnership, which is what we're having, right? So Prospera is coming in as the private partner to build out mainly the governance platform, right? So the laws, regulations, the master plan, even though the physical part of it will be much more decentralized, right? There will be many landowners, many developers. And we're now at the stage where we have crossed the first movers, right? I think you were here just at the early stages when...
I was when the Duna building, that's the building right here.
Right.
where I've stayed multiple times. I was here when this building was still not occupied at all. It was still being built. Like there was no rails on the roof. It was still, it still had like maybe 3 months to completion of that building. And I almost bought an apartment in that building, but they were just a little too small. And I decided to invest in different ways in Prospera. And I think after thinking about it for a year, I finally have an idea of what I'm going to do here.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yes. And so, you know.
And by the way, many of the people that are our viewers, our consistent viewers, have been here. Satwise Jenks and Kelly, that was commenting earlier. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing. And Bitcoin Capital, several others. Lots of the people that are watching my channel consistently, they've trusted me and made their way here to take a look, usually when I'm here as well. And they absolutely loved it and they can't wait to come back. And once I show you guys a presentation similar to this of what I plan to build here, there will be investment opportunities to, I'm not going to take any VC money, only friends, family, and followers if they are interested. So these presentations are going to be coming later this year.
Perfect. Yes, and all this is moving toward, you know, critical mass, right? We're just a little bit short of critical mass, right? Basically the mass where we can have everything you need within the zone. Now you still need to, you know, drive 10 minutes to the supermarket to buy groceries, and that's fine. It works quite well. But soon we'll be able to have critical mass, right? And that's what we're working towards. And I think we'll get there in the coming year or two. And then we're going from 0 to 1, right? And once we've gone from 0 to 1, we can then go from 1 to n, right? We can scale this globally, since we're talking with governments in Eastern Africa and different parts of Latin America. And, you know, this will still be our, you know, obviously always our main hub, but this hub is strengthened by also having other hubs because it gives us this solidity and this way of you know, always being able to have several jurisdictions. And the
videos aren't going to play.
Oh, they aren't going to play. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to come here to see the day in the life, I guess.
Well, you guys have, is this the last slide or no? Oh, no, here we go. Yeah, there's plenty of videos about what life is like here.
Yes.
In the playlist that says must watch in the YouTube description.
Great. Yes. And this is where we are physically, right? So it's on the island of Roatan, outside of Honduras. As Tone says, you know, it's only around 100,000 people, but there's over 1 million visitors per year. And these are mainly cruise ship visitors. And so that actually just shows
the airport's expanding. So hopefully they will get, you know, bigger planes will land.
Hopefully.
You know, the fact that most people come here from Miami or Texas. Flights from Denver, Minneapolis, Toronto, they're very seasonal and only once a week. But because there were never any direct flights from New York or California, all of the gringo business owners here are mostly Texans with a few Floridians. Yeah. And this island definitely has the right mentality of their business owners.
Yeah. It's a very red state vibe kind of thing. And in the island, right? Even independent of Prospera.
Right. And we are talking about island. Yeah. There is some of the best restaurants, like amazing ribs over at Christie's. I can name businesses all day. Awesome brewery, great steakhouse, Prime, 504, my favorite steakhouse here. Best ribs on the island, and some good margaritas over at Christie's. Shout out Ilias, the owner of the brewery. And the beauty here is, you know, the owners. Like we played poker with them, like the owners of the coolest businesses on the island. You get to hang out with them.
Yeah, notice they're great.
They're the nicest people. It's awesome.
It's great, yes. And then, it's, you know, as you say, it's very easy to get to from Miami and Houston. It's direct flights every day. There's also a direct flight every day from Madrid to Honduras, and then you would fly from the mainland to Roatan the same day.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't want to fly or can't fly via the US, then you can get here easily via Madrid. And we have these 2 districts, right? We have the Beta district.
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah. So we're sitting in the Beta building.
Yes.
So you see when you guys see right here, Beta building, that is where we're doing the interview right now. And go ahead and explain the districts.
Yes, so the Beta district is more entrepreneurs sitting here. We have Tower, etc. And then Pristine Bay is a little bit of a different vibe. It has more, big homes. It has a resort. It has a bigger school.
I am currently staying in Pristine Bay. So all the videos where I was doing the dry fast, the pool in the backyard, the view of the ocean, that was in Pristine Bay, which is a property purchased by Prospera Inc., the company, because that giant property failed because of the pandemic and no tourism.
Yep.
And they were able to buy it at 40 cents on the dollar and has one of the nicest hotels on the whole island and possibly anywhere. But incredible Las Verandas resort.
Yep, exactly. Yes, and
that's
so this
the
is
better building.
This is where we are, right here. And as you see, it's 2 minutes from the tower, 2 minutes from the small
walking.
Factory. Yes, walking.
And Tone is looking to build something right here.
Yeah. And we are just next to the other the Beta Village, right? The other things.
Yeah, and we're gonna do a presentation on Beta Village.
Cool.
Probably on Wednesday.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is where I live up here, and it's 82 units. There's everything from studio to 2 bedrooms. There's 4 commercial floors, right? So there's a coffee shop. There's a gym.
That's the pool, right? I almost bought this apartment here.
Yeah, the
right there.
sea view. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right here. I almost bought that apartment.
Yeah, could have been. And there's a Beta building and the circular factory. And then the Pristine is a different vibe, right? It has the resort here, and it has the villas. Here's probably where Tone has been.
Right. So this is I've streamed from here, and if Tone does another financial summit style retreat for health and wellness, it would be at this resort.
Yeah.
I've stayed in this villa. I've stayed back there, and the streams that I do right now, I'm staying in this. So if you see the villas right here, you count the 3rd villa down, and that's where I am. But I'm only here 2 more days. But that is the villa that I'm staying in right here, and it has all this view.
Cool. Yeah. So as you see here, we have the residential villas here, right? So there's around 80 of them. Yeah. But as you see here, we have many hundreds of acres here unused. And so a lot of that will be housing over time. And, there will be a biohub center, a financial center, etc. Yeah, some more imagery there.
Oh, this is actually what is? Oh, that's the hotel. That's Las Verandas Resort.
That's the hotel. Yeah.
And that's the Bitcoin Center.
Yes.
There it is. There is the Bitcoin Center. That's the rooftop of the Beta building. I do want to catch the sunset. I'm curious how it is right here. So we are going to we are going to get to your questions. We're going to wrap it up real soon. That's where Brian. Wrong button. That's where Brian Johnson went. Yes. It's a little bit off. It's about a 15-minute drive away, but they are ZEDE zoned. How does that work?
Yeah, so the way these free markets Honduran lawyers wrote the law, which is so beautiful, is that if you're a landowner in Honduras, you can incorporate into the jurisdiction of your choice. So you have actual choice. So you can incorporate into the Honduran jurisdiction, which is by default, or you can incorporate into Prospera. But if we treat you poorly, you can incorporate back into Honduras.
So if I was to buy land anywhere on the island, could I incorporate into the ZEDE?
2 things. Legally, yes. But then legally, yes. But currently, the guy who's stamping the papers is not stamping them, right? And so there has to be some resolution around
because of the last government was very anti-ZEDE.
Yes.
So we did videos on how hostile the last government was. The last government was very left-wing, and they were very against capitalism. So
they were against the basic due process as well.
Right. And they tried to make a life nightmare for the Prospera Inc. Corporation building the Prospera ZEDE. And they survived the most hostile government that could ever be elected in Honduras. That government lost significantly to 2 additional candidates. One of those candidates ended up winning. And the chances of that left-wing government being elected again are actually pretty low. And if they get elected again, Prospera will be even stronger by that time, and it will not matter. So these
Yes.
I expect the city to grow rapidly at this point.
Correct. Yeah. So we had the worst administration in Latin America after Venezuela, right? We dealt with this for 4 years. And during this time, we went from 1 resident to 200 or so. We went from 20 companies incorporated to more than 400. And this is during the worst 4 years you can imagine. And so we see that the coming 4 years, I think, will explode. I just want to show also we have a school here. So if you have a family, right, we have an international school. It's Montessori based. And there's around 70 kids. But those are kids from both within the zone, but also from around the island. And we're building out the biohub, right? So we're building out basic research and medical and clinical infrastructure. Here's some images from around the island. Some more images. There's
Yeah, this is where I learned to scuba dive. My new hobby. I learned right here. There is a scuba shop that accepts Bitcoin.
Yeah,
on the island.
There is, and
they taught me how to dive.
Yes.
And that is actually me on my phone as usual.
Yeah.
During the last BitChill like 3 months ago.
Yeah. So BitChill is, you can go to thebitcoindistrict.com, and there you can find the list of, and also to the Prospera page, and you can see the upcoming events there.
And there it is, BitChill.
Yes.
You guys have seen me promote BitChill as well. Here are some QR codes. And I wanted to go back to something to mention. I already forgot. I knew I should have interrupted you and said something. Oh man, what was I going to talk about?
It wasn't the sunset.
No, we are going to go catch the sunset. Oh, yeah. I was going to get to your questions.
Okay.
So maybe we can do that. I think that's the last slide. There is Lonis. If you guys want to reach out to Lonis,
just email me or DM me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Yep, and his info is in the video description as well. That is the end of the presentation. We're gonna stop the screen share. I do want to get to some of your questions because there was a very important question. It was right here. Very important question.
Oh yeah.
Is there any food meat production on the island, or is most of the supplies shipped in? Unfortunately, at the moment, most of the supplies shipped in, and it's and the other unfortunate part, as you will learn in Latin America, American farming practices have kind of captured most of Latin America, unfortunately, and so getting really high quality beef does still get imported from the U.S. I struggle getting proper pastured eggs on this island, which is why I am very motivated to invest in someone looking to create a little farm.
Okay.
I would be motivated to do that because one of the businesses I'm looking to open here is a restaurant that would be seed oil free and gluten free, that would only have things like pastured eggs and ideally only grass-fed beef. And I would love to source that beef and those eggs from the island itself. So if there are entrepreneurs looking to start a small farm just to provide meat and eggs and some other things just to the local restaurants here, that would be a business I would be very, very interested in listening a pitch for. So things like that. And as the community grows here, there will be a need for things like that. One of the things that I miss the most about the United States is easy access to high quality food. I know the average food in American supermarkets is terrible, but high quality food at a decent price is usually a 30-minute drive to a farmer's market away from any city. Even if you're in the middle of New York, you can be in the middle of Manhattan, and every single Saturday, there are farmers markets where Amish farmers come from Pennsylvania, and they will sell you some of the best beef and the best eggs. All you got to do is show up and buy it. So, unfortunately, in most Latin American places, that element is missing. I have the same problem in Panama. It's hard. Oh, this is what I was going to say. The other great thing is that the Prospera ZEDE district borders the sea. And there is a plan to build on the island, a small dock that would be able to take a barge from Miami or from Houston. And the length of time it takes for a barge from Miami is probably just a couple of days. And because the barge would dock in the ZEDE zone, we should be able to import anything from the US for use inside the ZEDE zone. Duty-free, without federal government of Honduran taxes, and even Prospera ZEDE's customs agents checking it to avoid bureaucracy, to avoid shakedowns, to avoid all the stuff that anyone deals with when they're importing things from one country to another. So when these goods come in directly into the ZEDE from the US, it will be a little hard to import. I mean, you would think that here on the island, I would be able to get unpasteurized milk, but as far as I know, you can't. I've seen some cows on the island, but I don't know who owns them, and I don't speak Spanish good enough to go and figure it out. But perhaps over here on the backside of Pristine, there's lots of land. Until that land is utilized for high-density residential and commercial, plenty of space to raise a few dozen heads of cattle, a few hundred chickens, get a little aquatic farm for, fish. So I would be one of the people driving the bus on sourcing the food for the restaurant I want to build from Pristine Bay. We'll need to get, Black Angus from the US, ship some cows. Again, all of it could come in duty-free, bureaucracy-free, directly into the ZEDE zone. But this dock will not be a major one. When we go to the Google, oh my God, I'm not on screen share. Shit, my bad, guys. Wasn't on screen share. I was showing this. So this is Pristine Bay, and the dock would be over here. This would be a small dock. Now, if I go to the Google map, let me exit the presentation. If I go to a Google map, Prospera Inc., which is the corporation behind the Prospera ZEDE zone, also owns land on the mainland in an area called La Ceiba, right here, which also borders the ocean. This has the capability of being a very large dock that could potentially import huge cargo ships from places like the Panama Canal. And one day, perhaps La Ceiba will compete with something called the Colón Free Zone, which is right here. The Colón Free Zone is where every single major company in the world has an office in.
Right.
Because any major goods passing through just go through here, and this is a tax-free zone in Panama. Now, as a Panama resident myself, I can come and take a look, but technically anything I buy here tax-free, in order for me to bring it out of the zone, unless you know people, you need to pay a tax, right? But this is where goods come in and get repackaged and reshipped to other places.
Right.
So having a direct connection from La Ceiba to the Colón Free Zone, you would be able to import anything. And now, not only will this zone potentially compete as another hub, the advantage that, where are we here? Up there. No, we're up here.
Oh, we're up there. Yeah, sure.
One of the advantages that Honduras has in general is that it's connected to both coasts.
Right.
Yes, it's not a canal, but you can put things, you can build a rail line, you can build a rail. So if this is a big international port, there will be lots of interest of having a counter on the other side of Honduras. But in any case, Prospera owns this piece of land here.
It's all of this.
All of this.
Yeah,
Wow.
so this would be the port area, right?
And now when goods come into this port duty free, because Prospera has its own jurisdiction on taxes, they can now be reshipped into the Prospera ZEDE.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, until we actually build high quality local food with the right farmers, the high quality food may need to be imported from Miami farms. It could also be imported from the mainland farms, but as an American, I would love to support local Honduras, but for me it would be easier because I could just have a person go to Costco or other places in Miami, put stuff on a barge, and then I have it 2 days later.
Yep.
But as time passes, as I make connections and as I learn Spanish and I make more connections in the country of Honduras, I would rather get my food, high quality food from the mainland, or even better, Prospera ZEDE would be interested in building a farm for the restaurants on the island.
Yeah, let's talk more about that. I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Something that, and starting with just a bunch of chickens with a proper diet, as most people don't know, chickens are carnivores. The only thing a chicken should be eating is other animals, but because chickens are so small, the animals they could only eat are worms and bugs.
Yes.
Or if they happen to find a dead carcass of some other animal, they will eat it. So the best eggs are from chickens that don't know what corn and grain is. They're pure carnivores. And I would finance that chicken farm like tomorrow if someone wanted to manage it.
Let's talk about it.
But yes, so that was a great question that I really wanted to address. Yeah, definitely possible to buy land in Prospera and build on it. That's what I plan to do. Okay. Checking Prospera out as well. Yep. You need to come here and check it out. The worst thing that will happen, you will have an awesome vacation with amazing diving. That is literally the worst case scenario.
Right.
Where's the nearest international airport? Technically, the airport in Prospera is international, but at the moment, there aren't many international flights. The rumor had it was right before the pandemic, Lufthansa was going to rebuild that airport and build a bigger runway and have international flights from even Europe. But there are flights from the US to Roatan, so that's an international flight. There are also flights from Belize, from Guatemala, from Nicaragua. So Roatan has an international airport and it's being expanded now. So hopefully it could start, having more people fly in from more places.
Yes.
But it's a double-edged sword. Like, do I really want Californians and New Yorkers having a direct flight? I have family in New York. I'm trying to get them here to check it out. But honestly, guys, I'm not in the rush for direct international flights from all over the world. The traffic here is not bad at all. And I would love to keep it that way.
It's true. It's a good point.
So I have no problem with keeping it as a hidden secret for now. Stanton. Oh, you haven't been here yet. Planet Musk. You need to come here, man. I can't believe you haven't been here yet. Okay. Hey, guys. We're going to go catch the sunset. Import Texas Slim cattle from El Salvador. Yes, that would be actually ideal. I do need to talk to Texas Slim. I know about the project he's putting together in El Salvador. I am very interested to see how that gets rolled off the ground. And we would definitely be interested in bringing him here to advise on doing something similar. Yeah, guys, like, share, subscribe. I think we're going to go catch that sunset. if we're not too late. It is 5:45
All right.
here. All right, guys, I'm going to come off screen share. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll probably see you tomorrow morning for the Bitcoin analysis stream on the Financial Summit YouTube channel. All the links are in the video description. See you soon.